Alright, so one of the things that I watched in 2022, read in 2022 was of the Kyoshi novels, which are obviously prequel novels to the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And, I was just very interested in reading these because obviously I'm a massive fan of Avatar and I'm always hungry to consume new content. Keyword new content, Avatar related. I want news stories and not just yet another retread of the original series that they're doing on Netflix right now. And oh my gosh, I don't I don't know if by the time I upload this video, which will be by New Year's, the first season of the Netflix Avatar series will have dropped. I don't know when it's coming out. It seems like it's been in production for fucking ever. But like I just don't like it just does not interest me. Like another, recreation of season 1. Like we already saw that. We already saw that live action. Why do we need to see it again? Like maybe it'll be good, but like what I just don't understand why we can't get new like stories from this, from this franchise, because it's such a good franchise. Like I absolutely love the Avatar world and stuff, and there's so much potential in it for like all new kinds of different stories. And this is one of them. It's prequel. They're prequel novels telling the story of Kyoshi, and yeah, they're really good because I thought Rise of Kyoshi was fantastic, and also Shadow of Kyoshi as well, which I will be reviewing after Rise of Kyoshi. So yeah, I thought this novel, Rise of Kyoshi, was very good, a very good read. I enjoyed it a lot. I like that. One of the things that I really like about this novel is that it's very creative and it doesn't focus on what I assumed it would focus on, which is, the biggest thing that we know about Kyoshi from the series is that, the whole Chin the Great stuff and everything she did with that. And it's like, I thought, okay, they're making a prequel novel about, Kyoshi and stuff. So I thought it would be like a story about, I thought it would be a story about, Chin the Great and, everything that happened with him. But then, like, I mean, thinking back on it, I don't know why I thought that, because, like, Kyoshi defeats Chin, like, almost effortlessly. And, so it's kind of, can you really make much of a whole novel about that? But yeah, I mean, I just like that basically it's really good reading this novel because like it's so far back in the past and it pretty much doesn't deal with anything we actually know about Kyoshi from the main series, that like it constantly keeps you on your toes, because even though it's a prequel, you really don't know what's going to actually happen, other than obviously Kyoshi is going to survive because we know she lives like for 400 years. But like other than that, you don't actually know what's going to happen at all, because it's dealing with all this stuff that we have never been told about in the main series. And that's really cool, so I like it. And like, it shows what Kyoshi was doing when she was first starting out, like as a young woman. And like, there are a lot of twists and turns in these novels where you just don't know where it's going to go. So I really like that about it. So yeah. And I like that, I do like that we see Kyoshi as she is starting out, her first steps into Avatarhood, because, it's so interesting, because when we see Kyoshi in, like, The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, she seems so different from how we see her in this book, The Rise of Kyoshi, as a young woman, who is, like, she's so incredibly inexperienced and, strangely enough, not very talented with the art of bending. And, like, that's crazy, because, like, Kyoshi is, like, such a meme in the Avatar fandom, where she's, like, this unbelievable god who, like, will destroy anybody who gets in her way. But, like, at the same time, like, the Rise of Kyoshi sort of also shows that she's not really, I mean, I don't know, she's not really, like, she's not really very confident in a lot of ways. She's sort of really not ready for all the things that get thrown into her, and she doesn't really have much experience or talent with bending. And like, I mean, and it's so interesting to see how she, sort of matured into the person that she, eventually became, of course. And like, so in regards to Kyoshi herself, I really like Kyoshi in this book. I think she's a really great character, because like it's good because, the book constantly showcases moments where it shows her toughness and her strength of character and her drive to succeed. But also, like, ironically, Kyoshi is kind of, like, much less talented of a bender than Aang or Korra was. I mean, like, it's so interesting, too, because, like I said before, she is portrayed as this, like, oh my gosh, the most powerful avatar ever. But then you see when she, as she was starting out. She was actually much less. She was actually not nearly as good as bending as Aang or Korra was. So it's just really interesting to see. And like, so you see her struggle and actually train to become better over the course of the novel, and it's really cool because in the Legend of Korra series and in the original Avatar series, while there was like moments of training and stuff, it really seemed like the characters kind of learned to do stuff like maybe a little too fast, and because like basically that one episode where Aang learned was struggling with earthbending, but learned it how to do it basically in a day, and then afterwards was pretty much super good at it. And it's like you have a limited time period to showcase character development over the course of like a 9 month series in universe. But like, yeah, but I do like that the Rise of Kyoshi actually gives us more puts more focus onto the struggle of Kyoshi actually trying to learn how to bend and struggling with it legitimately a lot. So also it was really interesting to see how it was really interesting story decision to have like it be where people actually the people responsible for discovering the new Avatar made a mistake and thought it was Yoon, which leads to this whole debacle in the story and a lot of conflict, which that's really, really interesting because it's one of those things you don't think about where, there are these people who have to search for the new Avatar to be discovered so that they can lead the world into the next era. But then, like, you don't think about, oh, well, what if they actually made a mistake and chose, like, the wrong person? And then, it's really interesting character decision. I really like that as these stories started out, unlike Korra and Aang, Kyoshi is like not aware that she's the Avatar at all, and so has not been like has not been given all these expectations on her shoulders, and then sort of learns later that she is the Avatar, and then it sort of changes her whole worldview. It's really good. It's just really good storytelling, and I really liked it. And so another thing about this book that people might need to know is that this book is pretty violent. I mean, like, there are... yeah, The Rise of Kyoshi is pretty damn violent. I mean, there are parts of the book where I was kind of shocked at how violent it gets, because, obviously, Avatar is a kid's series, but, I mean... but yeah, like, there's, like, for example, like, one moment that just, like, really surprised me when I first read it is, like, where they're at this meeting, at the southern pole, and basically everything seems fine, and then like this guy just gets stabbed through the heart, and like, yeah, there are moments like that throughout this book that are just they get pretty violent, and it was weird when I was first reading, but I did get used to it, and I did kind of like how it really felt like there were real stakes and characters were definitely in danger of dying. I mean, like, characters could die in Avatar and especially Legend of Korra, which was sort of more adult, but at the same time you have it is definitely PG violence in those shows where it's sort of like you can't go too far. Like, for example, Jet, obviously, the most famous example from season 2 of Avatar. But, I did still love how it's really interesting how in this book and in the next book too, there aren't actually any swear words that are used in the book. Like, it's funny because it is so violent, but at the same time, they don't use any swear words. And I love it because, like, it sort of makes sense in universe because, of course, the characters in Avatar universe, the characters in the Avatar universe don't say things like normal swears. They say things like, monkey feathers. Like, I liked how these Rise of Kyoshi prequels actually sort of stayed consistent to that and didn't just, like, drop F-bombs and, like, say shit. And, like, I sort of did appreciate that, honestly. I did like that aspect of it. Feels like, it feels like they were actually sort of trying to stay consistent with with what has been presented to us in the series and not like going overboard and trying to like make it, it's got to be adult, so it has to have all these swears, and I don't know. Yeah, I like that. So overall, I really like the story of Rise of Kyoshi, and it really does feel like it exists in the Avatar world, and we get to learn a lot. We get to learn a lot about other aspects of the world that we were not aware of before. Like, for example, we have to learn about a lot of the outlaws that existed throughout the world, and especially in the Earth Kingdom, which is super cool because, like, of course, the Earth Kingdom is the prime place for, like, outlaws to thrive because it's just so big and decentralized. And this book also dives heavily into the political situation that was going on in the Earth Kingdom at the time. And yeah, it's really cool to learn about it. And I think the information is presented to us really well, and it doesn't feel like it's going like it doesn't feel like it's there aren't just these massive exposition dumps at any point. It just feels like very natural world building, which is something that the Avatar universe has, or something that the Avatar franchise has always excelled at very well, which is world building. Also, this book also definitely has a lot to say about like political leaders and morality, and I really liked how the book explored a lot of those themes, especially with the character of Lao Ge, who really challenged. He's the old man in the book who really challenges Kyoshi's ideals, and really tested her throughout the book with everything she had to go through, and it sort of it was sort of reminded me a lot of like the way Zahir did so to Korra in the Legend of Korra. Even it is weird because even Lao Ge even making the connections between him and Zahir even more making the connections between him and Zahir even more apparent, which is that Lao Ge even references Guru Lahima in the book, which is a really cool bit of connection to what we learned in the Legend of Korra. And I really liked it because he has this very interesting philosophy, of course, and with what he believes about how the Earth Kingdom could be much better, and his whole perspective on violence and everything. Yeah, he was like just a really interesting character, and sort of like a less extreme Zahir, which, obviously Zahir is my favorite villain from Legend of Korra, and, Lao Ge is not a villain in this book, but he is sort of just this very morally gray character who has these very interesting perspectives. And we also learned, like, some really interesting lore with him, too, with how he, it's sort of revealed that he is, spoilers, by the way, I'm not going to be holding back on spoilers in this review, but with him being actually an immortal person who uses sort of earthbending to keep his body intact, like basically forever, which of course we can assume is how Kyoshi managed to live so long, and how later Bumi also managed to live so long, which is that earthbenders have the ability to sort of sustain their bodies for a prolonged period of time, which is really cool. Yeah, so I like that. And in terms of some other characters in this book, I ended up really liking Rangi. She was just really cool, and I also loved how seeing how the Fire Nation, like even back hundreds of years ago, was still so obsessed with like honor and loyalty, and her sort of like stuck-upness and like obsession with honor is played for laughs a lot of the time, and I did find a lot of that really funny because but also Rangi was just like a legitimately really good companion. I also thought her relationship with Kyoshi was really sweet. How over time she sort of it was shown how much she cared about her, and obviously they ended up in a relationship together by the later point in the book. So yeah, I really liked Rangi in the book. I thought she was really cool. The villain who I'm not going to spoil actually, but I really did like because I said I won't be holding back on spoilers, but I'm going to keep this secret for anyone who hasn't read the book. But the villain, I'm not going to spoil it because it's kind of a twist villain, but it was also a really good twist because of how it's done and because of how good the character was. So like, because I could definitely understand where the character was coming from, and like it's not so much that like the villain it's not just like that the villain starts off as good and like this good guy who is like who was like trying to fake his what I'm talking about is that like it's not the trap that like other things with a twist villain fall into, like some of the Disney movies where it's this villain who's like pretending to be good at first and then reveals that they're a mustache twirling like bad guy in the end, and like it's not like that. It's sort of like that this character seems good and fine at first, but then it's sort of the more you understand about them, or him, I already said him before, I guess I'll, well, yeah, it's a him, but whatever. So this character, the more you sort of understand about him and his past and some of the things that he went through, you can sort of like understand that, this guy is the kind of person who would go to these extremes to accomplish what he wants and what he thinks is, good for the nation of the Earth Kingdom. And as you sort of learn the audience sort of learns more about that, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And it's not as if his like personality totally changes or what he's trying to accomplish. He's still trying to accomplish the same things. It's just and that could be theoretically viewed as good, but it's just he's going to these extreme lengths to actually get it done, and it's really interesting in that way. And, I really liked him as a villain. I think it was, and I also thought it was really cool that just like in the Last Airbender, where you would have these, scenes that would revolve around the villains, where you would cut back to Zuko and Uncle Iroh a lot, and also to a lesser extent Azula and Commander Zhao. Where with him, the villain in this book, you would also have some chapters just focused on him and the story playing out from his perspective. And I really like that because I really liked him as a character and thought he was a really cool villain. But also, in regards to some of the action in this book, I thought this book had a lot of really cool action scenes, which, of course, I would have loved to see them animated and not just reading them from a page. But nevertheless, they were still really cool, and I really liked reading them. And they have a lot of creative uses of bending in this book, which I thought was really great. So yeah, anyway, in regards to The Rise of Kyoshi, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it to any Avatar fans out there. It's a really great book and a really great story, and I really liked it. So, yeah, that's what I thought of The Rise of Kyoshi. So now, anyway, moving on to Shadow of Kyoshi, which is, of course, the sequel to the first book. And, yeah, I would have to say that this is... So, Shadow of Kyoshi, I think, is probably as good as the first book, Rise of Kyoshi. Maybe better, maybe a little bit worse, but I'll get into that. Yeah, there are some issues I had with this book, but yeah. So... Anyway, I'll get into that down the line. But anyway, so first off, thing I want to talk about in this book is that it starts out really great with a year having passed from the events of the last book, and with us really getting to see, how Kyoshi has gotten a lot stronger over the course of that time, and becoming, really becoming a force to be reckoned with in Ba Sing Se, going and busting all these crime rings. It's really cool to see, and it's a great introduction to the book. The main thrust of this story, though, doesn't take place in the Earth Kingdom. It takes place in the Fire Nation, which I loved because we really don't get to see the Fire Nation a ton in the franchise. Obviously a lot of season 1 was a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender really was set in the Earth Kingdom, and we did definitely get to see a bit of the Fire Nation. But then in The Legend of Korra, we literally didn't see the Fire Nation at all. And, I like The Legend of Korra. It's a great show, but come on, we didn't get to see the Fire Nation once. It's just really annoying that we never actually got to see it. But, I mean, in general, the Avatar series, just tends to focus a lot on the Earth Kingdom because, obvious reasons. It's just, it's just so big, and, there are so many varied locations to explore, which is, obviously that's the reason why, there is so much focus put on it. But, the Fire Nation is, quite honestly, my favorite nation in the Avatar universe. It's so interesting, and the more you learn about it, the more, interesting it becomes, because, everything that is going on there, the culture, the people, the civilization, it's so interesting, and I love, I just love the Fire Nation in Avatar, and I was instantly reminded how much I loved the Fire Nation and why I loved it reading this book, because it was just so fun being there and learning so many things about it that we never knew before. And I love being back in the Fire Nation. It's just such a fucking great location, and such a cool fantasy civilization. I just love everything about the Fire Nation. Obviously, I don't agree with everything in the Fire Nation because sort of genocide and stuff, but that happened later. But again, it's I just really find it to be the most interesting civilization in the Avatar series, and it's just so cool that we got to spend a lot more time there. And it's also cool because when you get to the Fire Nation and compare it to the Earth Kingdom, which we've seen throughout the series, and obviously we saw in the first book, The Rise of Kyoshi. You think to yourself, wow, the Fire Nation really has their shit together. Unlike the Earth Kingdom, which is just falling apart, which is just the Virgin Earth Kingdom versus the Chad honorific Fire Nation. But but then as the book progresses, you go on and you realize that, oh my gosh, the Fire Nation does not have its shit together at all. The Fire Nation is really just one big powder keg waiting to ignite, and you get a sense of it's just really cool to see how, because even the people in the Avatar universe, they think oh my gosh, Fire Nation is so advanced, and they really have everything together, unlike the Earth Kingdom, and wow, I wish I was in the Fire Nation. But then you get to see how incredibly unstable the political situation there actually is, and it's just really it's really cool that the story actually pointed that out, and then revealed to us that, oh, that's not actually the case at all. And yeah, and you also get a sense of how you get a sense of how different the Fire Nation used to be from how it was in the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and like there are like a bunch of differences from obviously the like genocidal civilization that we saw in the Avatar: The Last Airbender. But you also get to see how the conditions that arose in this book and what happens in it kind of sort of led to what the Fire Nation became in the original series. And I think that's really cool to see because it provides a great piece of connective tissue from the Fire Nation in this book and what the Fire Nation became. Because you can totally see the Fire Nation falling into what it became in the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And of course, before that and before the 100-Year War starts. And, it's just, I don't know, it just feels very natural. And how this civilization evolved from where it was in the Shadow Kyoshi novel to what it is in sort of the present, I guess, or in the Avatar series. And I just really like that. It was just really cool to see how the Fire Nation was originally, and it's just like totally... You can totally understand how it sort of evolved over time into what it became. And and the story in Shadow of Kyoshi is once again very engaging, and there were some great action scenes, even though, again, I would have really liked to see them animated. And it's just not as cool reading them in a book as it would have been to actually see them animated. But anyway, I just would have... Honestly, I just really would be interested in seeing these books be adapted into 2 seasons. Like, does anyone feel the same way? I mean, honestly, it would be... I just want more animated Avatar content, because, like, one of the greatest things about the original series and about The Legend of Korra is the animation. It's just, like, one of the biggest draws to the series, and how well animated it was, and how much effort, the studio put into making it look as good as possible, and how the animation just sort of brings the world to life. And, I mean, I just feel like I'm so much more interested in seeing, like, an adaptation of these books than, like, yet another bullshit live-action rehash of the original series. I just don't care. Like, I don't care about the Netflix Avatar series. I want to see something, like, again, it wouldn't even be technically new, because, again, I've already read these books, so it would be stories that come from pre-existing material. But, like, again, it's just, I want to see a new story, and I want to see it, like, that deals with a story outside of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and I want to see it animated. I want to see it in full animated glory. Like, you could do something like that. You could have like maybe the first season be about 16 episodes, and then the second season be about 15. I mean, reading through those books, I think that would be a good episode count for the adaptations of both books. But anyway, another thing I really like about the Shadow of Kyoshi novel is that, like, it gave us a lot of insight into Avatar Kuruk's character. And, because most people, including me, before reading this book, for us, like, Avatar Kuruk is kind of the loser Avatar who didn't really, do anything, but, like, and sort of just, like, didn't really accomplish anything, and sort of just lazed around. But seeing his backstory in this novel, and seeing, like, everything that he went through, and the struggles that he went through, like, I mean, it's just... It was honestly maybe the best part of the whole book for me, just seeing Kuruk's past and everything that happened about it. And it just, like, recontextualizes a lot of, assumptions that Avatar fans, like, make about him from the little that we see of him in, the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And, like, it really honestly made me care about Kuruk as a character. Like, he's just such a... I don't know, his story is just so fascinating and brilliantly told, and it just, like, it makes me really put him much higher up on the list as in terms of avatars, throughout the history of the world. I just really liked how it gave a lot more focus to him, and a lot more character depth to him. And I just really like that aspect. I think it's maybe the best aspect of this book in terms of what it does for Kuruk, ironically, because it's a Kyoshi novel, but does such a good job fleshing out Kuruk's character. But anyway, in regards to other characters in this novel, I still really like Kyoshi. I think she's obviously still a great character, and she has to deal with, in this book, a lot of self-doubt in her role as the Avatar, and, her thinking that, she's just messing everything up and thinking that she's a failure. And you also see her sort of developing more into the Kyoshi that we know that she becomes in the future, with her having to make a bunch of really tough decisions that maybe are not always the right thing, but still sticking by her convictions and that kind of thing. Like, for example, the scene where she was threatening the Fire Lord's brother, and, that whole scene with her her in the end being wrong about them being connected to Yoon, but still going to pretty great lengths to try to find out the truth and get a confession out of them, even though in the end she was wrong again, which sort of it's sort of just great scenes like that, which are what sort of pushes Kyoshi towards this very uncompromising figure, but also showing how she still has a lot of self-doubt because sometimes that kind of thing doesn't always work out in the end. So yeah, I really like that. I really like Kyoshi's character in this novel. Rangi is also great again, as always. She's incredibly cool and a badass fighter, and there were a bunch of moments where I laughed with her again. She just there's a lot of really funny comedy in these novels with Rangi at her expense, sort of. But like you also sort of get to see more in this novel how her impulsiveness and her hot-headedness get her into trouble, and how she has trouble dealing with that kind of thing, like with when she severely injured that one girl who she used to know because she was just so incredibly fired up. And once again, her relationship with Kyoshi is really cute. I also love one of the funniest things about Kyoshi and Rangi's relationship in these novels is it's so hilarious that Rangi is actually the dominant one in the relationship who wears the pants and stuff, and which you would never expect considering Kyoshi is this 6'4" behemoth who in The Last Airbender is portrayed as this incredibly dominant force, and she's actually a bottom in the relationship, and it's just that's just so fucking funny to me, and something that you'd never actually expect. Yeah, it's just really funny. And also in regards to one of the things that I did not expect for me to like so much in terms of one character that I really was not expecting to like so much in this book is Rangi's mother, Hey Ran, was a character I really liked in this book. I mean, she was in the last book, but she didn't get a ton of focus, but she gets a lot of focus in this book, and she's just so incredibly badass, and also goes through a really cool character arc with of her kind of trying to take responsibility for the bad things that she did in the past, and sort of cutting off her top knot, sort of shedding her honor and becoming more humble. And I really liked it. I really liked Hey Ran's character in this book. She's just so interesting and so cool. And I really liked Hey Ran. I also really liked a lot of other characters introduced in this book. Like, for example, the Fire Lord and his brother were great characters, and I really liked them. The airbending monk, who I don't remember his name, but he tags along with Kyoshi and stuff. I really liked him. He was cool. Especially one of my favorite characters in this book was probably the waterbender healer, who is introduced sort of as part of the group. She is just really funny, and it's hilarious how she is just basically bossing incredibly powerful people around, like the Fire Lord and Hey Ran, despite literally having no actual fighting skills and just being a healer, and just the insane guts of this woman, and with how she is just talking down to everyone. It's just she was so funny. I really loved her in this character. I really loved her in this book. And my only real, I would say, like I said before, I think there are aspects of this book that I think are better than in The Rise of Kyoshi, but there are also issues with this book that I don't think were in The Rise of Kyoshi, and the main one, really my only issue with this book, is the villain, which is, once again, sort of a twist, but, I mean, I kind of do have to talk about him because of, who he actually is, and so the main villain of this book, The Shadow of Kyoshi, is Yoon, who was the person that in the first book, Rise of Kyoshi, everyone mistaked for the Avatar. People thought that he was the real Avatar. Of course, it was later confirmed that it was Kyoshi. But in this book, he's the villain, and I don't think that Yoon worked nearly as well as he could have as an antagonistic force, because his motivations in this book just don't. You can sort of get a picture of why he's doing the way he's doing, but just the extreme lengths he goes to for seemingly very arbitrary and contrived reasons just don't really make a ton of sense to me. Seeing him, Yoon, basically, who was a character in the first book, who was just a relatively nice person who was friends with Kyoshi and Renki, just seeing him in this book, basically just deciding to go on a murder spree and attacking Fire Nation royalty and endangering everyone he used to know, seems like a reaction that that does not follow from the main source of conflict he has, which is a lack of a clear identity and his betrayal from Jianzhu. I mean, we already saw in the first novel how he basically killed Jianzhu as revenge for what happened to him, and yeah, that makes total sense. But like in this book, he's basically just going on a killing spree and like causing a lot of trouble for no reason, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just like him having a like lack of identity and sort of like not, and sort of like being angry at like everyone who basically admired him, not because of who he was, but just because they thought he was the Avatar and how they so quickly forgot about him. I mean, yes, the pieces are there for him to have like this dark turn, but I just feel like it's just not a reasonable reaction for someone to just like do these incredibly extreme actions because of like feeling betrayed by one person, and to a lesser extent like the whole of society. It just doesn't really make much sense to me. Like I feel like it would have been more compelling for me if there was this like power struggle scene in the books between Kyoshi and the people who still wanted to like use Yoon as the Avatar because they liked him more, even though he wasn't the true Avatar. So basically what we could have seen, which was sort of alluded to in the first book, what never really played out, which was that, you know, everyone had already been used to like thinking that Yoon was the new Avatar, even though, you know, it wasn't technically confirmed, where he went basically all over the place, like making all these negotiations with people and making all these negotiations with people, and, you know, getting in touch with all the like high-ranking nobles throughout the land of the Earth Kingdom and also in the Fire Nation. And it would have been interesting if we saw like how even if Kyoshi was found out to be the Avatar, after that people would still like, there would still be a bunch of people still wanting Yoon to be the Avatar, so they would basically be trying to say, oh no, Yoon still is the Avatar, and like it's just fake news or whatever that Kyoshi is the Avatar. She's not actually the Avatar, and it would have sort of been led to this sort of interesting conflict that would have actually naturally developed a legitimate conflict between Kyoshi and more naturally developed a conflict between Kyoshi and Yoon, with like him sort of trying to meet the expectations of all these people who wanted him to be the Avatar for their own purposes, and trying to live up to that, and sort of feeling threatened by Kyoshi because, you know, he thought that Kyoshi was sort of trying to take away his Avatar status, and that if he just like if he just believed himself hard enough, then he actually could sort of become the Avatar. And like I don't know, I feel like that would have been a more interesting, you know, conflict between Kyoshi and Yoon that could have been possible than what we got, which is sort of just Yoon doing these things because he can, I guess. I mean, like, I don't know, I don't know, like, you know, but then in this book, it's basically, there's basically this question of why Yoon is doing what he's doing, and in the end, it's basically confirmed that he's, like, literally doing this, doing all these things for basically no real reason at all, and it's not like he was being like influenced by Father Glowworm, and he wasn't even being like he was acting on his own, and he wasn't like working for the Fire Lord's brother in order to create these conflicts to get him to be able to steal the throne. Like, it wasn't anything like that, and I just feel like that's kind of uninteresting, and it's just not, like, there could have been more interesting and more realistic conflicts that could have been done with Yoon's character, but I just don't really think that he was handled that well in this book, and I didn't really feel like how everything that played out with him was really, you know, it wasn't the best written, I will say. Like, it wasn't horrible or anything, but it just, I don't find him nearly as interesting or his plans as sensical as the villain, twist villain in the first book. So anyway, overall, I think that this book is really great. Of course, the Shadow Kyoshi novel, it's a really great book, but the villain aspect does hold it back from being perfect. However, I still do really recommend it. It's a great book, just like The Rise of Kyoshi is a great book. And yeah, definitely check them out if you're an Avatar fan, or even if you're not an Avatar fan. Maybe these books will get you into the Avatar series. But anyway, that is what I thought of the Rise of Kyoshi and the Shadow Kyoshi. If you have any thoughts, leave them down in the comments below. This has been the Aromantic Shipper. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember, just because you can't feel loved doesn't mean you shouldn't want other people to. Bye.